And so I don't know, what does that land, and does that map onto what you're saying, is that there is going to be this psychological tipping point that's just going to drive Bitcoin from commodity into its money phase?
That is such a great point that you just made, because there's two realities here, and people have a hard time stepping out of the fish tank and kind of looking at the bigger picture. And I like to say it like this: there's the producer and the consumer. There's the lender and there's the borrower.
Right.
Typically, people look at it through one angle, and it's the angle that they're coming from. So Bitcoin mining gave me a big advantage, and I recommend to those people out there, get a hobby miner. You're not going to make money, but you'll learn a lot about the network. And what happens is the halving, people psychologically front run the halving, anticipating a higher price because the cut and supply to the block reward. But they stop there. And they just think, well, it's a pattern. I've discovered a pattern. Yeah, but what are the underlying fundamental economics of that? The halving immediately doubles cost of production.
Right.
So
Bitcoin,
for a miner, the cost to produce the Bitcoin on the halving without mercy doubles overnight. And then every 2016 blocks, you're getting hit with a difficulty adjustment. So it's a very tough business, but it's those economics that drive value into the price discovery process. And people psychologically see the price action, but I don't think they put two to two together to describe the price action. They rely more on this type of pattern thing. And it's the same thing with what's going on with the dollar. We see it right now. The psychological portion of dollars inflating has actually come down a little bit, especially with Elon Musk and Doge, because people look at that and they say, oh, I think we got a solution to this. But Doge has cut, I mean, even if Doge successfully completes its goal and cuts a full $1 trillion off the budget, we have a budget deficit of $2 trillion. And after you look, the deficit is a projection. Okay, like I project, like if you work on commissions, I project I'm going to make this much. The reality changes from what you project at the beginning of the year. So a lot of times our deficit is a lot larger. It's significantly larger than the projected deficit. Realistically, we're like at $2.5 to even $3 trillion of deficit, not the budgeted barely $2 trillion of deficit. So if you cut one, we're still at a $2 trillion deficit, which means we have to
annual
print.
Loss every year.
Annual. And you know, actually Max Kaiser tweeted me like 2 years ago. We got put in Forbes for this. We called it the debt spiral. And we said, look, if you raise interest rates, you think you're going to slow down the economy. And you will slow down the economy. But the economy is not the source of inflation. You look at Venezuela, they did a very strong demand destruction campaign in Venezuela. It doesn't matter. The economy only wanted water and food. All prices still went up because the source of the price increase was the abuse of the currency, not the economy. I believe the Fed made the same mistake. They are punishing the economy for the sins of deficit spending.
For their own sins.
Yeah, exactly. So if we can kind of, but that's the psychological twist. People say, if we can fix this, then I feel comfortable holding these bills, notes, or bonds at 3 or 4%. Because in the long run, I might gain purchasing power. And then the other thing that ties into this psychological warfare is the lack of accuracy within the consumer price index. The incentives behind CPI are so corrupt that it makes it what Elon's finding now with Doge look like fairy tales and fairy dust and everything's okay. I mean, that's how corrupt it is. And there's clear economic incentive to understate CPI. It goes into Social Security. If you use the 1980s CPI, which I believe is the most accurate CPI, we use that on govflation.com, it's over 10%. So if you look at 10% inflation and then subtract the 4.5% that you're getting in a U.S. Treasury bill, that's negative. 10% minus 4.5 is negative real interest rates. Well, the natural incentives created by negative real interest rates are exactly what you stated earlier psychologically. Wait a second, why am I going to save? I'm going to get less goods and services if I save. I need to spend now because I'm going to get more goods and services for my purchasing power now. So when the official numbers are telling you you should save, but then the reality is telling you spend because you're going to lose, we end up where we are right now, where half the world thinks we're going into a recession, depression. The other half thinks that the economy is strong, and everybody's honestly confused. Some of the best asset managers in the world are confused right now. My position is we are in the middle of the recession right now. And here's the difference. The textbooks will define a recession and everybody automatically, psychologically just thinks negative. Negative, negative, negative. Prices have to come down. That means recession. No. A recession is when your quality of life and your standard of living go down.
Right.
That's what you need to be focused on.
Yeah.
And we are in an inflationary recession. And if we don't make the proper changes, we will move into a hyperinflationary depression.
Yeah.
Because our net worths are going up.
Nominally.
Prices are going up,
Yeah.
but in real terms,
Yes.
right? Nominal terms,
Right.
you don't know what's going on. You might feel a little bit richer.
Yes.
But in real terms, you're getting poorer and your quality of life and your standard of living are going down. So we are in the middle of the recession right now. And this all goes back to your first question, the money versus the currency.
Yeah.
If you integrate Bitcoin, you eliminate the ability to trick people. Because Bitcoin then becomes that direct barometer, and it almost already has become that. We see a lot of charts shared out there by economists, especially Lynn Alden does a great job of showing money supply, global liquidity, relative to Bitcoin price. So it's kind of already doing that. But when you make it official and you get a strategic Bitcoin reserve or you tie Bitcoin bonds, which I know we'll dive into, now you have a direct barometer on that. And I think that dampens the psychological warfare we see on the populace to control that understanding of what's really happening.